they were living under systems that were then forcing them to pay taxes and deal with other ideologies and cultural issues that were essentially harming their lives or causing them to not be able to live the life.
I think you guys just said the same thing.
So they're playing by the rules. They're playing by the rules. They're doing everything.
You're describing a victimhood mentality.
No, I'm describing people who get up and go to work.
MAGA Scott Jennings went on Abby Phillip show to say MAGA Scott Jennings things. The topic of this section of the debate panel on Abby Phillip show was about the victimhood mentality of Donald Trump and the victimhood mentality of MAGA. We're going to take a look at these clips of Scott Jennings debating Abby Phillip and the rest on Abby Phillip show on CNN. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's check this one out together.
Tonight, is the right becoming the left? Ben Shapiro is claiming that the party that has long criticized Democrats for having a victimhood mentality is now sending that same message to Gen Z. Listen.
I think that the right is actually weirdly feminizing young men by giving them a victimology to buy into. Listen, if you're failing in life, yes, we can get the obstacles out of your way, but it's a little your fault. It's a little your fault. You should actually pick your ass up and go out and do something useful. And this notion that you as a Gen Z male are facing these obstacles that no other human has faced for all of human history, like read a book for once. Like seriously, like go talk to your grandfather.
What do you think?
I do love listening to Ben Shapiro. Look, I think that he sees the problem he described, popping its head up on the right, and he's going to have none of it. I agree with him. Victimhood is a path to more problems. It isn't a meaning identifying oneself that way as your primary focus instead of trying to solve the problems that are out there. And he said, get yourself off your butt, start working on these problems. And I agree 100%. I mean, frankly, that attitude helped make America the greatest country in the history of the world.
I guess I'm just surprised that now, this very moment, is the first time that this thought has crossed his mind, because I do think that actually the victimhood mentality is something that has helped power Trumpism. I mean, it's all been about what they are doing to us, how we are the victims, how the immigrants are taking our jobs, how other countries are taking our jobs. Everything is victimhood in Trump's world. So this is not really all that new. I'm surprised.
I disagree with your assessment. I mean, I think what drove a lot of President Trump's coalition is a whole bunch of people who felt like they were doing everything that they've been told to do. Get up every day, go to work, pay their taxes, take care of their families, play by the rules. And they were living under systems that were then forcing them to pay taxes and deal with other ideologies and cultural issues that were essentially harming their lives or causing them to not be able to live the life.
I think you guys just said the
same thing.
So they're playing by the rules. They're playing by the rules. They're doing everything.
You're describing a victimhood mentality.
No, I'm describing people who get up and go to work. Well, if you want to describe working class America that follows the laws and pay their taxes as victims, go ahead. But that's not how conservatives.
No. But I think
But you're saying that, look, everybody is doing everything right? But other people are putting something on.
Yeah, like illegal immigrants who come here and take up public resources. They're not doing things right, but the left, and you would argue that it's okay to leave them here, and the working class of this country would say, no, they broke the rules, but they broke the rules, and I didn't, and yet they get more than I do.
Yeah, but
it's a good question.
But Scott, not all of the problems in this country are the responsibility of immigrants. Would you agree with that?
Yes, some are. Some aren't.
But
that's an example of something that you asked how the Trump coalition absorbs things.
The overarching theme of Trumpism is a lot of what you're saying, that it's other countries screwing us over, it's immigrants screwing us over, and where in the Trump mentality is it that I don't know, according to Ben Shapiro, that we need to pick ourselves up and do something.
But the fascinating part about
you don't have to accept it. The Trump ethos would be, we don't have to accept it. We can fight back. And what Ben is saying, I think, is the same thing. Like, don't sit on your ass and just say, well, woe is me, I'm a victim, and there's nothing I can do about it. The actual answer is, you live in the greatest country in the world. Of course there's something.
The fascinating part about this argument, and the fascinating part about watching this argument play out just in being here, is that we've been able to articulate these same arguments for a very long period of time. That you've had 300 years of slavery, that you've had 100 years of Jim Crow, that you've had redlining, you've had the remnants of it, you've had state-sanctioned violence from Emmett Till all the way forward. And as soon as somebody articulates those things,
for any reason that you may be running behind in the race that we call America, then all of a sudden we're playing victim. But in you two's mind, it doesn't quite articulate. It doesn't compute the same
way. It was
way.
very notable that Scott used the word systems that are
correct.
affected.
Is it wrong?
But
Is it
it's
wrong?
not wrong.
I'm
And
just
I
saying.
agree
Expect
with
people
you.
to enforce
But hold on, Scott.
the laws.
All I'm just saying is that when
agree
people
with
talk
you.
about systemic racism,
No, but
you
I
guys
just want.
think that you guys say that is a
but
made
my
up
only
thing.
point.
but you just describe
This is where
systems as being
this
the
is
I'm
where
describing systems where people are encouraged to break the law
this
and
is
then
where
giving no
Scott and
punishment
I.
for doing
This is
so.
where Scott and I agree, and it frustrates the people on the left who I love and the people on the right who Scott loves, because I just want the systems to be fair. Like, I don't want the systems to pick winners and losers, but I want the systems to be fair. And I think Scott would agree with that as well.
Well, let me jump in and agree
but
on
you
one
also
one
have to
aspect of
realize
that,
that
too.
for 400 years, they weren't, right? So we need to make sure that we do everything above and beyond. I can't make you dance. I just want everybody to have an opportunity to have an equal dance floor.
Well, good news.
Is that-
I can't make me dance. So, but
That's why I miss you, kid. Where have you been so long, kid?
Kind of connecting your comment to Abby's is the picking winners and losers. So you don't have to look Republican versus Democrat. You can look right inside the GOP at the Chamber of Commerce wing of the GOP versus ordinary people. And the Chamber of Commerce wing has been winning for most of my lifetime until along came a guy named Donald Trump. And he's very unorthodox and he does things a very different way. But he is, within the GOP, he is changing that focus. The focus has shifted much more to regular people.
What Ken Cuccinelli is saying here is absolute nonsense. The idea that things are shifting towards regular people when we have a president and an administration who are just funneling money, the country's money, into their pockets. So the idea, that they're still trying to sell that Donald Trump is for the average person. Anyone with 2 brain cells knows that this isn't the case. But I also love what Scott Jennings says here, talking about people following the rules. And then, we pay taxes and all this. And then we have to deal with these different cultures and these different ideologies. That right there is the current right mentality. The current right-wing mentality is, I don't want to deal with anything or anybody that is different from me. Scott Jennings only wants to focus on straight, white, Christian males. But if I have to deal with somebody that's not white, or somebody who's not straight, or somebody that's from a different culture, I don't want to do that. That's what Scott Jennings is saying here. And that is conservatism in a nutshell. They don't want to hear any differing opinions at all. And guess what? That's part of being in a society. That's another one of the big problems that MAGA has. Their victimhood is based on really not wanting to live in a society. We saw what happened during the pandemic, where they didn't want to go along with anything that might slightly inconvenience them to try to make sure that somebody else wouldn't get sick. And Scott Jennings talks about playing by the rules. You pay your taxes, you do the right things. Look at all the people, regardless of what their ideology is, what side of the political spectrum that they're on, that they work hard, they get an education, and then they get sick, even with insurance, very expensive insurance, and they go bankrupt. Somebody who has played by the rules, and, let's say it's not even something that Scott Jennings could blame them, like they didn't follow the proper diet or they didn't exercise enough. They're in an accident. They get in a car accident. Somebody hits them, and then they go bankrupt. Scott Jennings would say, well, tough luck. There's no right to health care in this country. We have a free market, blah, 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 blah. Or somebody works hard, they get a good federal job. They're working hard at that government job, and their reward at the end is going to be a decent retirement and hopefully decent insurance. MAGA couldn't wait to come in and cut as many of those people as they possibly could. Does Scott Jennings care about those people? No. So it's all nonsense, and I love to see Scott Jennings and the rest of these MAGA crybabies cry about how mistreated they are and that they have to deal with these immigrants. The immigrants that simultaneously, using up all the resources, but also taking everybody's jobs and their homes.
Than it ever was for most of my lifetime.
The Chamber of Commerce is at the White House every single week.
But that
He
doesn't
is totally fine with the Chamber of
Abby,
Commerce.
please.
Meta,
this isn't binary.
Google,
this isn't 0 or 1.
Apple.
Yeah, but
you know,
you can't
name
call
it. They are
This Ken Cuccinelli guy is totally full of shit.
at
Donald
the
Trump,
White House every single week.
You cannot
They
call a
call
Donald
the
Trump
president and
agenda
ask for
a
favors,
Chamber
and
of Commerce agenda.
They call him all the time and ask for carve-outs. They ask for breaks. They ask
Which is
for
what they do.
carve-outs
They're
and
just a
tariffs.
big lobbying organization.
I'm just saying, the individual companies that comprise the Chamber of Commerce, they don't have to go through the chamber anymore. They can just walk right in the front doors of the White House and get the things that they're asking for. You can't. I take your point about the populism that Trump ran on, but the governance of the Trump administration has been that if OpenAI needs something, if one of these other companies needs something, they call, and then he says, you know what, we're going to exempt you from this policy. How is that not a Chamber of Commerce mindset, as opposed to what is he doing for the average American that is actually on the receiving end of his policy, specifically tariffs? The people who are going to the grocery store and buying a box of Folgers, and they're paying a markup because of tariffs. What about those people? And
what do you think the chamber thinks of those tariffs? I think we've heard that pretty clearly.
I'm asking what do regular Americans think about those tariffs?
Americans is the key word.
Americans is the key word.
Also alienating young men right here with his comments.
Okay, nightcaps. They are next.
So spot on from Abby Phillip here. Ken Cuccinelli, I mean, does anybody believe this nonsense that Donald Trump is fighting hard for the little guy? Other than the MAGA cultists. And I don't even know if, Scott Jennings is a MAGA cultist, but I don't even know if he actually believes that Scott Jennings is fighting for the little guy, that Donald Trump, rather, is fighting for the little guy. Scott Jennings is a propagandist, and he's making however much money he is going on these shows and with his own podcasts and everything. I'm sure he doesn't actually believe that Donald Trump is fighting for average Americans, but sadly, we still have tens of millions of average Americans who believe that Donald Trump is fighting for them. But like Abby Phillip is saying here, I'm not kind of putting words in her mouth, but I don't know if there's ever been a president in modern times who was less for the average person, less for the little guy than Donald Trump. I mean, the guy who's made how many billions of dollars with crypto scams and all kinds of other things while he's been in the office. But let me know what you think about all this. Do you agree with Scott Jennings that, MAGA and all these conservatives, they've just been doing everything the right way, but now an immigrant has ruined their life, or, again, putting words in their mouth, a trans person, or whatever other boogeyman that MAGA wants to go after? That's been the real mentality behind MAGA, and Donald Trump is constantly finding a boogeyman. Oh, it's not your fault. It's the immigrant's fault, or it's the trans person's fault. So do you agree with that mentality that Scott Jennings is bringing up here, and also Ken Cuccinelli seems to buy into? Or do you agree with Abby Phillip and even Ben Shapiro, that sort of started this whole discussion on Abby Phillip's show, that maybe these MAGA people need to take a little bit more accountability and stop blaming everyone else like their dear leader constantly does? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.